Hello, I just want to go over factoring expressions with you if you'd like a little bit of a review. Remember, factoring expressions is using the distributive property kind of in reverse order so that when we start with a subtraction problem or an addition problem, we are rewriting it as a multiplication problem of two factors. So that requires us to find a common factor of the two terms here that we have in either case. So here we have a subtraction problem. I've rewritten it as an addition problem. This makes it less confusing. So if you're still struggling with negative numbers and like, is that a negative? Is that a subtraction symbol? And you're asking those type of questions, then simply change those subtraction problems into addition problems by adding the opposite. So in this case, we're subtracting a positive 15y, and we can just change that to adding a negative 15y. And so that everything is an addition problem, and that makes it a little bit easier. So we're looking at these two terms and asking ourselves, what is a common factor, or what is the greatest common factor that we can divide by? There may be more than one. You may notice that 5 is a common factor of negative 5 and negative 15, so we can divide by 5. It kind of looks like this, where we have the whole expression is being divided by 5. Each term is being divided by 5. So let's do this. Before we start this, you do have to remember the rules for dividing positive and negative numbers. So let's take a look at that real quick. So multiplying and dividing have the same rules whenever we are dealing with positive and negative numbers. All we have to do is count up how many negative numbers are there that we're multiplying or dividing by. If there's an even number of negative numbers, for example, if there are 2 negative numbers that we're multiplying together or 4 negative numbers that we're multiplying or dividing, then our answer is going to be a positive answer. Or if there is an odd number of negative numbers in there, so if there's only one number that's negative, so maybe it's a negative times a positive or a negative divided by a positive. If only one of them is negative, then the answer is going to be negative. So we can just count up here. We have, let me go back to our math problem, we have negative 5 divided by positive 5. Well, we've got these two numbers, one of them is negative, so that means our answer is going to be a negative number. Negative 5 divided by positive 5 is 1, which we don't have to write the 1 because we have x right here. We just move that x straight up. So let's put our plus sign. So this is negative 1x, and then here we have negative 15 divided by positive 5. Our answer is going to be, is it positive or negative? Negative. Because we have one positive and one negative. Those are different signs. We only have one negative number in there, so the answer is going to be negative. And then 15 divided by 5 is 3, so we end up with negative 3, and then y stays there. Nothing happens with that. We have 5 as one of the factors, and then inside parentheses we have negative x, and we have plus a negative 3y. And I don't like to have two symbols next to each other. Now this is legitimate, it's okay, but it's a little cleaner if we say it's minus a positive 3y. That way we don't have two symbols, which is a little more confusing. So here's one way to simplify this. Now we didn't have to go through this division process, but it might be helpful if you want to practice with this division type of idea and just put the answers above. So this is what goes inside the parentheses, but you don't have to do that. Here is another way you could do this without that division problem. You can kind of do it in your head a little bit. So let's go back to our original here and say, what if we factored out a negative 5? So I'm going to do a new problem here. Factor a negative 5 out. Let's put our parentheses in place and then just say, what's our answers here? I know there's a plus sign going to be in here, so let's do our division. I have negative 5x right here, negative 5x divided by negative 5. I know my x is going to be in there, and negative 5 divided by negative 5 is 1. So it is just 1x, and I'm not going to write the 1, we're just going to say x. Now over here we have negative 15y. I know the y is going to be in here. And let's divide negative 15 divided by negative 5. Here we have two negative numbers. That's 2. That's an even number, so I know my answer is going to be positive. You'll notice that the difference between these two are the signs. The signs are completely different. They're opposites inside the parentheses. So both of these ways are good ways to factor out a common factor. You could factor out a positive 5 or a negative 5. All right, let's take a look at some other problems. Here's the Bob and Jimmy problem. We can factor out a positive 2 or a negative 2. So pause this right here. Go ahead and pause it. Give it a shot here and do it on your paper, and then we'll come back and we'll see the answers. Okay, let's take a look at our answers. So if we divided both of these by 2, this is, you may want to have written this as an addition problem. So this is going to be plus a negative 6 right here. You might start seeing this up here. You might start seeing this as, here's my negative 2x, and negative 6 is just right here. You might start visualizing that minus sign being a negative symbol for the 6 and understanding we're adding those. So anyway, let's divide by 2. So negative 2 divided by positive 2 is going to be negative because there's only one number that's negative. Negative x plus, and then negative 6 divided by negative 2 is negative 3. Okay, and we can also write negative 2, and that's another way of writing. Instead of plus a negative 3, we could just say minus a positive 3. Just switch the symbols to their opposite so that it's a little cleaner that way. All right, let's factor out a negative 2. So we're going to divide each of these by negative 2. Negative 2x divided by negative 2 is a positive x, positive 1x. And a negative 6 divided by negative 2, both are negatives, so that means it's a positive 3. Okay, so both of these are correct. In this case, we have 3 terms. That's okay. Just find a common factor for all 3. We could do 6. And inside the parentheses, 6x divided by 6, well, the x is going to be right there, and 6 divided by 6 is 1. And here is, I'm going to keep this a minus sign. It's a little, we have a positive number out here, so we could just do 18 divided by 6 is 3. So it's x minus 3. And then here we have the subtraction symbol. And then 12y divided by 6 is 2y. The y, we don't touch that. We could also factor negative 6 out. So here you may want to say, okay, I'm kind of confused now. So remember, this is plus a negative 18 and then plus a negative 12. So that way, 6 divided by negative 6 is negative x. Remember, one of those, there's only one negative number. So, and then plus, and then negative 18 divided by negative 6, that's going to be positive 3 because there are 2 negatives. And a negative 12 divided by negative 6 is positive 2y here. Okay, so, and you'll notice the difference between these signs are all the opposite from over here. All right, you try this one here. Pause. Let me just kind of move it up here. Okay, go ahead and pause it. You try this one, and then unpause, and we'll take a look at the answer. All right, let's do 2 different ways. You'll may want to make that plus a negative 28, just like that. And let's factor a positive 4 out. So negative 4 divided by positive 4 is negative 1. And then there's our plus sign. If everything's addition, makes it easy, just everything's addition. And then negative 28 divided by positive 4 is negative 7. So we end up with this, and of course we can rewrite it. All right, like that. And if we have negative 4, here negative 4 divided by negative 4 is positive 1 plus, and negative 28 divided by negative 4, positive 7. Here we go, and that's it. Let's try one more. This is kind of a little tricky one, so I like this one. How about this one? Go ahead and pause, see what you say about this one. All right, in this case, I went ahead and factored a 6 out. So I'm going to make this plus negative 6 right here. And if we factored 6, 6 is not the only common factor. I know there's 3 also, or 2, but there's also the letter m. The variable m is also common in both of those. So we can factor out an m as well. So let's just take out 6m. Factoring variables is super easy. You just take the variable out. So let's do the math here. Negative 18 divided by positive 6 is negative 3. And there's no m. The m is factored out. M divided by m is just 1, and there's no m in there. So here's negative 6 divided by positive 6 is a negative 1, and the m is gone. We factored that out, but the n is still in place right there. So we end up with this. We end up with these right here. Same thing. Plus a negative n is the same as minus positive n right here. So this looks a little cleaner. What if we measure or factored out a negative 6? Let's do that. And don't forget the m. We'll factor that out too. There we have it right there. Negative 6 divided by negative 6, positive 1. Okay, so those are some practice problems right there. I think that's it. And thank you for joining me.